Hello and welcome to this evening's edition of the Watchdog as we continue to look back at the year that was 2022. My name is Vuyo Mvoko and I'm happy to take you back down memory lane to some of the most memorable and perhaps not so memorable moments here on our show and in our country. Now, in our last episode, we decided to speak to two leaders of some of the country's smallest political parties. We featured Violet Zungula, the president of the three-year-old African Transformation Movement, but who this year made their presence felt by taking on the Speaker of the National Assembly, as well as President Cyril Ramaphosa, around the Phala saga. We also featured Nelvis Qekema on why he decided to quit his good job to focus on reviving the fortunes of a rather old party, the 44-year-old AZAPO, which draws its inspiration from the late, great Steve Biko, but whose electoral performance has been dismal. Tonight, we continue to explore the thoughts and ideas of these new young leaders. But tonight, we are doing it differently, through excerpts from interviews we had on this show. These are definitely leaders to watch in 2023, even though they may not be part of the formal party system currently. Well, not just yet. It was in March when we spoke to Nhlanhla Dlamini in his capacity as the leader of Operation Dudula. The operation was being criticized for fueling xenophobia, promoting violence and vigilantism. Among those that had taken a swipe at Operation Dudula were EFF leader Julius Malema, the former leader of the official opposition Mmusi Maimane, and President Cyril Ramaphosa.
As a country founded on tolerance, on respect, on diversity, on non-discrimination, we must never allow ourselves to turn against people who come from beyond our borders. That is why, Kerry, those who are setting up the organization saying, Bo Dudula, Bo Mangmang, Rere, that is contravening the law. Runa, from government side, we will do our work. But we also want to say, let us work together. It's highly sensitive because this thing can soon turn out into xenophobia, and you know how the continent can turn its back on us.
Contravening the law, the president of the country says.
We must correct that. You are talking to the #1 office in the world, in the country, when you speak about presidency. So you are talking to someone who is well briefed. We work with all spheres of government. We work with all spheres of law enforcement. The president knows the difference between Dudula and Bo Mangmang, quoting him verbatim. He says Dudula and Bo Mangmang. He knows Operation Dudula. He knows that he can't stand there in a formal platform and say that Dudula is breaking the law, because that's not the truth. So people are trying to force us to believing the president is addressing us. He's not. I am in support of what Cyril Ramaphosa is saying there. If we allow splinter groups to pop up, and those who've started the movement, such as ourselves, who are leading the movement, such as ourselves and the fellows in Gauteng, Alexandra, Soweto, etc., we have a responsibility to make sure that the other communities that are sharing similar frustrations know how to move with the movement, know how to invite the necessary law enforcement when we are operating, know how to hold government accountable in different spheres of government. And this is why you're seeing success from Operation Dudula. The president understands Operation Dudula and understands splinter cells that are emerging nationally now.
But you have law enforcement agencies in this country. Yes. They do the policing. Yeah. They arrest people who break the law. Yeah. It's not your place.
Yeah. So if it's not my place, that means already our conversation is undermining our constitution and our laws. Our laws do say that a citizen can arrest someone when they're doing wrong. So how then do I confront the social ills and the crimes in our communities if I can't?
You get state law enforcement agencies to do that.
No, but that means, let's not run away from what the law and the constitution says. Citizens' arrest is there. I'm not daydreaming. So why are we undermining citizens' arrest? That means you are saying that the people in Soweto must just keep quiet when the police are collecting bribes from drug dealers, and we mustn't make sure that the future of our kids is in our hands. We must just sit as couch potatoes and hope Superman will come out of the sky and help us. No one is coming to save us. That's why you are seeing the people rise. The Dudula has a market simply because the government and the law enforcement was not doing its job. And we are not here to point those fingers. We are here to partner to ensure that the country moves forward. We're doing it together. And that's what you've seen us do in our operations. Because even if you YouTube now, you Google now, you go to anywhere, any platform, you will see that Dudula operations always have law enforcement in the background. So how can we be vigilantes? Because vigilantism, we must not mislead the nation. When someone says you are a vigilante, that means you are taking, you are enforcing the law without legal authority. That's what a vigilante is. So if we have legal authority, meaning we have law enforcement present, and the arrests that we've always had in our operations are done by the police. I'm not even touching the citizens' arrest that we can do. So where is the vigilantism? But no. Simply because black people have organized themselves and managed to organize themselves in black communities greater than what government is organizing themselves, greater than what politicians are organizing themselves or how they are organizing themselves, better organized than even the law enforcement, then it's a problem. These blacks can't be organized. We are organizing ourselves and working together in our communities outside politics, because politics in its nature is very divisive. We divide in our communities. So we said that we're going to come together outside politics to take our communities forward, and this is what you are seeing happening today.
Let's pick up on what the president was saying earlier. That if you don't mind just pulling a zip down, it's interfering with the microphone. That's fine. That you should leave it to state law enforcement agencies.
Yes.
You should ask them, to do the arrest.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get involved because, I mean, in the manner you have done in certain instances where situations have turned violent.
Yeah.
So you must avoid that at all costs. The only way to avoid that is not to directly confront people.
Yeah. So again, we mustn't mislead the nation. Let's not be selective in what our president said. Our president acknowledged that we do carry risks of fueling the spirit of xenophobia. Exactly. I am a leader. I can't deny that. It's like if you have a problem with your wife because when you go to work, she sleeps with a guy from next door. You are scared of asking her if that's true or not, simply because you know after you ask her, your relationship will never be the same again, whether it's true or whether it's not true. So we are going to stand up for this country, and we know relationships will never be the same ever again. But we are willing to tread in the line of honesty and putting South Africans first in South Africa. Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa, what he said was, we must, right after he said that, let's not focus on the 30 seconds. The rest of the speech is he then says, we must work together as South Africans. Why are we denying that? He has seen that there is a need for us to work together, because the program can come from the street corners, or the program can come from government. But it can only come from government if we are all in government. Because government is for the people by the people, not for the people by some people. So we are the people of this country. So government, we are going to go in, whether the doors are open or not. And fortunately, it's opened the doors for us to all work together to make sure that everything is done together. We move together as a country, and we welcomed it.
But I mean, if you're acknowledging that what you are doing has the effect of actually fueling xenophobia. So it's not enough to then simply acknowledge that it's what you then do to avoid that.
So are you going to sit here today, and I'm not saying you personally, the rest of South Africa, are you going to sit here today and tell me that we have not done enough, us, as ordinary leadership of the people, to avoid xenophobia?
What have you done?
No. If we haven't done enough to avoid xenophobia, we are on thin ice with every operation. We would have seen xenophobia, we would have seen people fighting each other right now. Operation Dudula doesn't have a history of an arrest. And Operation Dudula doesn't have a history of blood spilling. In the Western Cape, you've got Zimbabweans and Sotho nationals fighting each other. Blood spilled, people were hospitalized. But that's not xenophobic, and that's not vigilantism. But when South Africans rise and stand up for this country and fight for the future of their children, then we must be labeled. We can be called xenophobic as much as people want. We will only deal with the reality. And reality does dictate that we've been careful enough not to incite that violence, not to incite that xenophobia, because even now the media refuses to tell stories where we are actually collaborating with foreigners where we are working with foreigners, where we take bullets for foreigners. They just want, when we are rising and saying that we can't live like this, let's do better by our people because we must address this white elephant called illegal immigration in South Africa. Then no. This bunch is disturbing the normal order. We can't stand this possible new world order where South Africans are empowered in South Africa. That time is coming, and it will come in our lifetime. With me dead or with me in prison, like you are seeing now, they're playing games to put us in prison because we are speaking the truth as it is, as raw as it is for South Africans, without being apologetic by any means. So with or without luck, this revolution will continue, and the people of South Africa will rise.
Who's putting you in prison or wants to put you in prison?
You know very well, it's trending all over. EFF has accompanied a drug dealer to go open a case against me. After the Gogos in the community, the entire community said that we can't get this person arrested. He's selling nyope to our kids. The police are here visiting him, collecting the 20 rand on a daily basis. He's got an active case as we speak. So says the community. Yeah, you're not drug dealing. He's out on bail. So we can't. So can you come and help us and confront these challenges in our communities? We do that simply because that particular individual is the chairperson or the secretary of the EFF branch. Then the EFF finds it fit to send people to come and make sure that the drug dealer, opens a case against us, the community, me in particular. No problem. When people attack people, which is not what we do, we don't attack, we operate. There's a difference. We need to use words better now so that people can actually start consuming the truth and not perceptions or narratives. We do not attack anyone. We have not attacked anyone. Now, when the EFF tells the media, and the media reports it as if it's a gospel truth, that even the community says that this person is such an angel, is that why I am currently right now, even on this show, sitting with a petition from the entire street and the street next door and the street on the other side that says this house has been selling drugs and it's a problem house in our communities, and we want it to be handled with proper care so that we make sure that Mapodisa are not going to be bribed to get this man out.
So what did you do?
I said it earlier. We operated. We went there with the law enforcement, or are they just now our fans? I can show you videos. By the way, we've got a video. It will come out and we'll see where the EFF, what the EFF does after it sees a video where we are very reasonable with a potential drug dealer. I was speaking to him. And in that video, it's clear. I can explain what that means the whole day.
And what did he say?
And then he said, I promise you, you're not the first people to come here that says I sell drugs. And I don't know why the community thinks I sell drugs. It's on video. That video will come out.
And he's denying it. I mean, on your account.
No, he is denying it. And that's why he was not arrested. Because we're not there to think that whatever the people are saying in the community is gospel truth as well. We just have to make sure that we do confront the social ills, the crimes in our communities. We can't just let them go and hope people who don't do their jobs will do their jobs. They don't do their jobs. It's there. And we have the constitutional right to confront that problem and arrest people if they are selling drugs. I don't even need the cops there. But I even go the extra mile of making sure all our operations have the police there. Why were the police there? Because it's evident they are there. They do tell you. We moved from the park where we had the briefing to, and everyone knew what address we were going to. The police came with us. Unless now we've got new fans called South African Police Service. They just enjoyed listening to us march and sing. Is that it? Or why were they there? They are mandated to be there. They get authorized to be there. They know why they are called out. Public order policing. Public order policing was there. I've got videos, they've got videos, they've got the police cam. So where can we go break into someone's house inviting the police? Come on, guys. Let's not even intellectualize this. You can already see that the politicians that are always talking without real action to help our people on the ground are continuing to talk. While you see what's happening now, politicians are judging our actions. Politicians are making sure that we get arrested because we're responding to the calls of Bokoko in the township that don't have any other avenue because the police are failing them too. The politicians are failing them too. Now when we rise, no, these ones are dangerous. They mustn't rise on our court because our downfall is them rising. It's simple. Do not play the man. EFF is playing the man. It's not playing the problem. The problem continues. Drugs are continuing to be sold in the townships. Whether you are scared of Lux or Lux is shaking your normal way of doing things and you're not the fancy voice anymore, there's young people who are emerging. Julius Malema is starting to become the old people that he used to hate. He's starting to become that old person.
But
and by the way, as young people, we admire Julius. Julius must know that. We looked up to Julius, continue to look up to Julius. He's failing us. We're losing our faith in Julius simply because of he is now emotional and he's starting to look like everyone else that's old, just sleeping in parliament. It's a matter of weeks before he starts sleeping in this parliament.
But why what's in it for the politicians you're saying are going after you once you're arrested? What's in it for them? What do
relevance? Relevance. That's what's in it for them. They are not popular anymore. That's why they ride on popular waves. We are the voice of today, not me in particular. The movement is. There is no week where we're not trending on Twitter, even though we're not doing it for Twitter. So they have a problem. They just want to popularize themselves with anything and everything. They can't come up with programs. When last, if I ask you as a well-informed and well-groomed gentleman, which EFF or political party program do you know that has ever emancipated our people in this day and time in the communities? What action has the EFF taken against GBV in our communities, against drugs in our communities? We are the ones, young people, taking bullets every day, and the same young people are getting arrested on a daily basis by these politicians. How dare they? They are disgusting.
But the EFF is saying, why aren't you, for example, fighting for land? Because land, by giving people land, you're going to empower them.
Listen, we can't fight things that are outside our abilities and jurisdiction. We are not politicians. They signed up for this. People voted for them to deliver. Their manifesto had the land issue on it. They had an opportunity to even vote with some political parties to change the status quo. They refused because they are politicking. They're not really here for people in the land.
What makes you say that?
Because it's clear. It's what happened. I'm not saying what should happen. I'm not talking about the future. We are not in politics. But I asked a simple question. Where are their programs to come and help us on the ground when we're getting shot? Where are their programs when people are getting raped every day? Our people are getting introduced to drugs every day on a daily basis in our townships. The police are doing very little about it. Okay, the politicians are doing fuck all about it. All they can do is gather the stadium and speak at rallies. We're the new black people in South Africa now. We are vibrating on a certain level of consciousness. We are not going to be fooled by words. Action, Papa. Action speaks louder than words. Don't care what they say. They can continue talking.
Is what we are doing a precursor to you forming a political movement?
No, it's not. Listen, me, I'm actually, personally, I'm a scholar of ancient African history. I will tell you how much I hate politics as a system. That's why I'm not even participating in politics.
You will never.
But that doesn't discourage other young people. I will support young people in politics because we can't all live the same life. Imagine if we all wanted to be soccer players. Then you wouldn't have this job. I wouldn't be sitting here fighting for the communities. So we must all do what we think is right for our lives as long as we know that it will contribute towards the development of our people in our country. So we will encourage young people to make sure that they take over the powers in politics, take over powers in business, private sector and public sector, so that the country vibrates with the spirit of young people, so that we can actually make a difference. Because we can't continue to be led by people who are taking decisions today but they will die in any time from now because they are too old. Therefore we can't hold them accountable for the decision they're taking now in the future. Your kids, my kids, your grandkids, they will ask you, Daddy, what did you do? Don't tell me about a minister or don't tell me about a politician. What were you doing? No, my child, I was waiting for the minister to do something. History will judge you.
So you have no interest in going to politics?
I have no interest in going to politics as a politician. Because we know that politics has managed, like a plague, like a virus, it has managed to intertwine itself around our genetic and our just the natural makeup in our societies. So you can't escape politics. Even now when we're speaking, we're actually speaking more towards a political market than a social market that wants to go jive, go conquer or PDL. So we must understand that we can't run away from politics. But I stand here on a public platform and tell you that I don't have any interest in being a politician. I will continue to lead from the ground because as you can see, as the country can see, that leading from the ground, being in touch with your people and not wearing your suit and tie and being on the ground with them. When they have load shedding, you have load shedding and you're fighting it together. And when there's drug dealing, you're fighting it together with your people. It's got more impact, and that's why I'm sitting here and no one else is.
And who is supporting your efforts? Is there anyone supporting it financially?
No, we don't even have a... Look, Soweto Parliament doesn't even have a bank account. When we have programs, Dudula, Operation Dudula programs, even the other Dudula formations from Alexandra, Dudula movement, Alexandra Parliament, Emalahleni Parliament, all our civic movements, we ragazad. We go to Megawatt Park, we say, guys, this community doesn't have electricity for the last year. Disgusting. Where's human rights? I don't know. But in any case, we are going to where the problem is, because we are tired of doing, breaking down robots, traffic lights, and blocking infrastructure and bending things. No, that's our community. We must protect it. The problem is with ESCOM, we are going to Megawatt Park. Guys, the buses are 2,000 rand. And how many people are coming? So that divided by 2,000 always works out to about 100 rand odd. And people take out that money. From me to move from Pinville or from Meadowlands to where the problem is in Deep Loop, in a taxi is 20 rand. So really are we asking who's funding me 20 rand to go to where the problem is, so that I can confront the problem and go back home on another taxi, get 20 rand. Not that I'm saying I'm using taxis. I'm trying to rationalize with you to say that who funds 40 rand? Mm-hmm. We must ask who funds the politicians. They are working for the people. They are drowning in corruption. They can't handle realities of the country. Ask them where they get the money. But no, the question must be asked ordinary South Africans who are active citizens, actually super active citizens fighting for the future of this country. Our efforts, even the EFF is a beneficiary of our leadership. We are not member-based. We don't work for some people, we work for everyone. What that means is that when an EFF member passes away in our communities, you forget your colors, you forget what political party you come from, you peel, because that's the culture of black people. The unity is there. We just have to now put glue on our unity and make sure that we let nothing divide us, even the politicians or the politics. We are taking care of our communities with limited resources. So we do it so well that people, the way they have lost hope in everyone else, in all these politicians, they're now asking us what we must do with other provinces. But it's okay. I can help answer that question. Cyril Ramaphosa has opened the door of us working together. So if we start programs inside government, by government, for the people, by the people, we'll start having programs that make sense, because we are the blueprint of a movement that works. So government is clearly failing, and with short of a few words, he was just short of saying that. But because he's the president, he needs to maintain a level of decorum, isn't it? So we will help you hear what he couldn't tell you. That is Ramaphosa Arma South African government so that we clean a country and put South Africans first in South Africa. That's what the man is saying. But he can't put it the way I'm saying it. Why? Because he is binded by SADC agreements and United Nations agreements and AU agreements. The people of this country, the current people of this country, want to make their own decisions about the South Africa they want to live in and move forward, and moving forward where the kids should be living in. That's the proposal of, we need a new CODESA. We need to talk about the land issue. At some point when we can graduate in terms of resources, time and space, we can handle that agenda. But time and space is important. We can't just speak about things that we don't even have the resources to deal with.
But I mean, you seem to be reading into what Cyril Ramaphosa said, something he actually didn't say.
No.
Because he says, don't. He says, don't do this.
No. He says, Dudula, libo mangmang. Now, if you want us to be technical, let's speak words, because me, I'm a linguist, by the way. You can speak any language you want. So, bo mangmang kibo mang. Why are you holding me accountable for bo mangmang? If the president said, bo Dudula, libo mangmang, I'm quoting him verbatim. Why do you want the narrative to be about Operation Dudula? I'm not fighting you, by the way. I am stressing it so that even people at home who thought the president was bashing Operation Dudula can't be, because we are already working with some ministers to make sure that we work together to take the country forward. Some ministers, they'll tell you when the time is right.
But who are they?
No, they'll tell you when the time is right.
What are they saying to you?
They're saying that they appreciate what we are doing, but we must work together so there's no loose end and take the country forward.
Which minister said that to you?
They'll tell you when the time is right.
Why? Why can't you talk about it? Because I mean, if you're open, you speak your mind, and you're convinced that you're doing the right thing.
Because unfortunately, this has nothing to do with you personally or the Watchdog. I love the Watchdog, by the way. I watch it, why. But there are some people watching you now who are making notes, because now the current status quo is not the same. They're making notes so that they can go and stop projects before they happen. We live in this country. We see projects getting stopped every day. Do you think people want us to be around? Do you think that these politicians would rather have you, me being interviewed than them? The answer is no. They're doing everything with their might. They're flooding social media with fake news and lies about us. And they continue to do that. They should take that money and invest it in the communities.
A few months after that interview, it was announced that Nhlanhla Lux Dlamini and other Dudula activists had decided to part ways, apparently over whether their focus should broadly be on immigrants or just illegal immigrants. Since then, Nhlanhla has been focusing on the Soweto Parliament, an organization focusing on local government issues and how they affect the people of the country's biggest township. After the break,
we've had a situation where we respond to specific issues in the country. I think there is a genuine concern that if civil society doesn't come together and speak with one voice on a range of issues affecting South African society, there is a real danger in 2024.
He wants to raise the bar and give South Africans hope. Six months ago, Business Day newspaper's former editor, Songezo Zibi, published a book that's perhaps as self-explanatory as any title can be. Manifesto, a new vision for South Africa. Together with a number of academics, activists and politicians, he has since formed a think tank called the Rivonia Circle, of which he is chairperson. Last month, the Rivonia Circle announced that they'll be forming a political movement to contest the 2024 national elections under the banner of SA Must Rise. Before that announcement, I had caught up with Songezo when they announced results of a survey that they had just conducted. Why did you decide to take part?
Because our country is in trouble. And the circle in the Rivonia Circle is about people getting together to discuss the problems of the country and solutions to those problems. And the Defend Our Democracy Conference was the kind of place where, together with other South Africans, we would have been able to discuss some way forward in terms of how we deal with some of our most intractable problems, like corruption, the crisis of governance in South Africa, threats to democracy. And so it was a very important gathering to take part in. And it was very well put together by the organizing committee. It gave everybody a voice.
But I mean, what distinguished it from everything else that we have seen, both after, deciding on the, to do what you have done from forming the Rivonia Circle to then raising your hand, going all the way back to your days, as an editor and before then. What distinguished this particular gathering from everything else that you've witnessed?
Over the last, I would say 10 to 12 years, we have seen a proliferation of many organizations in response to what has been happening in the country. Typically, those organizations are concerned with a particular issue or a set of narrow issues that they're going to advocate for or against, and so on. You've got Corruption Watch, sometimes you've got Right to Know, etc., etc.
You've got
Nhlanhla Lux and his thing, right? So you've had a conglomeration of single issues. But the issues affecting South African society are really distillable, actually, to quite a few broad themes. And you can't do that on your own. You need to bring all of these people together in order to talk about that list of major priorities that civil society should be dealing with and have a conversation regarding what to do about those problems. So it was a federation, in a way, or a coming together of lots of organizations that typically work individually.
But I mean, what do all those organizations have about them? That which you think can, because look, the political party system is entrenched, and it has proven to be difficult to break their stronghold on the socio-economic political setup of our country. Even in instances where civil society arose, as in the case of Jacob Zuma, for instance, and the fact that he's not around today, those civil society organizations had to work hand in hand with political parties across the spectrum. You'll recall I mean, the marches to, Pretoria, to the union buildings and so on. And that was really the strength. But the minute you come to politics of elections and that stuff, who should assume power, then that's where things fall apart.
No, of course, and that's not what, I mean, the Defender Democracy gathering was not about electoral power in particular. But here's the thing for you. We've had a situation where we respond to specific issues in the country. I think there is a genuine concern that if civil society doesn't come together and speak with one voice on a range of issues affecting South African society, there is a real danger in 2024, in the lead up to 2024, that you will still have fractured voices all over the place dealing with single issues. Now, at Rivonia,
but aren't you bound to have that?
No, let me share an insight with you. So we've been doing focus groups on the second round of research at Rivonia Circle. The one thing that South Africans of all races, different age groups across the country say consistently is how fed up they are with the party political system. The decision to abstain from voting in November 2021 was a deliberate one. People are not busy, or they had a funeral, or they had to be somewhere.
Or feeling cold.
They consciously decided not to vote because they've got a problem with the current political system. Now, one of the calls that came from there is that it is important that the issue of the nature of the representative democracy we have is put on the table as a political issue on which you can build a civil society campaign to make sure that this is better. Now, previously, this has been one or two organizations litigating in the courts about the issue, but you do need a mass of South Africans to come together and say this far and no further. So to that extent, this gathering served the purpose. The reason you didn't have political parties there is that it's like the turkeys voting for Christmas. They like this system that entrenches the power of party political leaders to determine who holds them accountable. And they can remove them if they like. And the solution that is on the table in terms of the electoral reform bill is a nothing solution. And it's being slow-walked anyway to make sure that it comes to nothing. The question is, what is the appropriate response from a civil society perspective? And it's just one of the issues. No, that issue.
Were you able to answer that question?
No. I mean, you've seen. I mean, Mcebisi John has made a very telling provocation. There was an actual decision out of that conference to make this an issue that must be taken forward, on which civil society must campaign and build momentum, engage in civic education to make sure that people understand that this electoral system doesn't work for them, but they have the power to agitate for changes to it. That's a change in tech, because previously people would go to court. But this is a democracy. You can't have everything resolved in the courts. It must be resolved in the theater of politics. And I think to that extent, this gathering was really worthwhile.
I mean, but what is the one thing you would say was its biggest achievement? And not only that, but how then you take that forward?
Its biggest achievement, Vuyo, was that I think there was a realization that civil society needs to get into the political ring in ways that it has not done before. And on the basis of usually the same issues that either political parties want to avoid or that they campaign in a different direction on. There was talk of a People's Manifesto, which I think is really important, because in a democracy you do need people to say, I've got my list of priorities. If your manifesto doesn't fit my list of priorities, then I'm not going to vote for you. Again, it changes the game in South African politics. The last point I'll make, Vuyo, is that...
But I want to ask this, because only yesterday, at the ANC's post-NEC briefing, and you would have seen on social media as well, people illustrating this so well. On the one hand, having that little soundbite from Bulemabe, that you need to sort yourselves out.
Okay, not the mood of the mood is the
about electricity.
Right.
And then the government will see how it can, help you, something to that effect.
Right.
And then on the other hand, people then took an extract from the ANC's manifesto about how it was going to do that. People say, and I'm saying we can ventilate all these issues and put it out there, but how do you then get the political system as it is, given the fact that, whether people abstain, the political parties will fight or slug it out over the few votes that we have, and someone will be elected. And they may not be. So how does that, what I'm trying to understand is how whatever it is that you have decided then feeds into the political system, or in fact forces, those who are.
So the way of answering this question is to take it outside of the Defender Democracy Conference specifically.
Okay.
And what I'm quite happy to talk about is what is needed in South Africa. What is needed is a political alternative, not just to the ANC, but to the political parties that we have, especially the top 3 political parties.
But by that you mean?
By that I mean a new political formation. A new political formation, Vuyo. And until we make that decision, it's going to be difficult to carry through the wishes that people that were expressed by the delegates to the conference, because you have a wide range of stakeholders. You've got the NGK, you've got the SA Council of Churches, and so on. They can't take that kind of decision because they've got internal constituency issues. What really is required, and I feel that this was the subtext to the conversation, that you really need a political alternative. What you had was a gathering where some people are far advanced in that argument and others are still thinking about it. Others have got other difficulties in that they might be aligned to one or other of the existing political parties. What we know is that the political parties we have lost the confidence of the South African people. How do we know that? Millions of them just chose not to vote for any of them last year, right? And millions more people are choosing not to register for an election. And what we need is a political alternative, a contestation for power, because ultimately that's what you need to have. It's just that Defender Democracy is not the place where you kind of have that kind of conversation. The important thing about that conference,
and that's where I can't really find it. Because remember, some of the people who were there, owe their allegiances to some of the big
historically they've been
parties.
In the ANC. Yeah,
some of them may well be fed up with it and are like, whatever needs to be done must be done.
Yes,
but there's also truth that some among them, do have ambitions or are keen to pursue very specific agendas. And not too long ago, many of them were the ones who created that barrier, that line of defense, where when people were raising a lot of things about the ANC specifically, were the ones who said, don't go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so such a disparate group and with so many agendas. I'm not saying that's not in the broadest sense, but given people's ambitions, agendas, and so on, how easy or difficult is it then going to be? Because if things have to move with speed, given the challenges we have right as a country and the urgency with which we have to come up with solutions, how long is it going to take, anyone for that matter, to get to that point where they call us about something very real and concrete, but something that is agile enough that it will be able to move with speed, capture the imagination of South Africans given the various crises that we are experiencing, and move with speed in implementing or putting into practice whatever you may have decided.
So I want us to get out of the Defender Democracy Conference as a unitary structure, because it is not.
Okay.
It is never going to take that decision. The conversation that you and I need to have is one about political alternatives, and I'm quite happy to have that conversation. But when we frame it specifically in the context of that conference. We're never going to get to that now. Answer. You and I are going to go around in circles. We're going to go around in circles.
Take that as a departure point.
So let's take that as a departure point. And what I will say, if you were to ask me what needs to happen next, if I had to give the closing address at that conference, which I did not do, I would have said, political power is central to effecting the changes that we want, that everybody in this room wants. When you leave this conference, you need to consider a specific decision. And that decision, it is on what basis in terms of values and principles, and on what basis in terms of priorities and solutions thereto. Are you going to support a new government in the union buildings? That's what you need to go back in your structures and discuss. And if you are able to make that kind of determination within those structures, then you need to find each other and support that alternative or form one. That's what I would have said, because that is the straight, honest answer. And you can do that if you're not limiting it to the conference itself. I think, though, what came out of the conference is a lot more people walked away with that realization. The question is, what are we collectively going to do with that obligation and that opportunity? Because there is an opportunity. All of these crises that we have, the pullback of people from democratic participation creates an obligation for us all to participate in political contestation, I believe.
Unlike the other two leaders we've just featured, Mmusi Maimane, the former leader of the DA, is obviously not a new voice. After leading the One Movement, a concept he championed for a few years, bringing together independent councillors, a couple of months ago he launched a new political party, Build One SA, to contest the 2024 general election. The party will bring together many other parties as well as independents. I caught up with him at a time Parliament was discussing the electoral amendment bill meant to accommodate independents.
I think none of us can deny this country finds itself in a deep crisis. You've just spent the last while discussing the energy crisis. I think we can't falter the fact that we've got an unemployment crisis. Most citizens in this country don't feel safe. Most young people are not getting through school. And more crucially, we have a government that's not working. And so we could all either sit on the sideline or we could simply roll up our sleeves and say, together as South Africans, how do we bring about the change? And I certainly believe that we have a vision for this country. I believe that this country can be the best it can be. And on current evidence, it's clear that we have a political problem, we have an economic problem, and we have a social problem. And I certainly want to put a political party on the table that will respond to this crisis at a time such as this one for our country.
How will it be different from anything that we know, your former political home, the DA, the ANC? How will yours be different from the parties we've come to know?
Yeah, I think, well, that's a very important question. You know, politics is a contestation of ideas and ideals. And we will be bringing ideas to this country that say, how do we reform education? You know, no one ever thinks about alternative models of education that could allow our kids to get through. We'll be looking at even the economy and what sort of reforms we can bring in there. So there's a policy conversation that we need to bring on the table. The second is that I've always maintained, and it's been my consistent message, is that how do we empower communities and make sure citizens participate fully in their democracy? And so therefore we will be going back to communities and make this crucial component of democracy. It's not unique only to South Africa, but it's a global phenomenon. And thirdly, we hold the absolute view that we are looking, and I want to work with the best in the country. The best may, at this current point in time, be in the various political parties and communities. I want to bring them together because I think for all of us, we've often sat at our homes and wondered what's going to happen after 2024. But I want to say to people of South Africa, we dare never fear change. Change is good in politics. We need to be able to allow ourselves to transition. And I want to bring about the best, not only in Parliament, but in Cabinet, so that we can build a government that's competent to deliver on the objectives of this country.
Do you think South Africa is ready for anything that will be new, and whether that new thing can actually, be able to beat the big parties that we currently have. Because I'm asking this because if you look at the pace, of things, even those who continue to grow at a much slower rate after they would have introduced themselves onto the scene. So it would seem to me that it's going to take a while, a long time actually, for anybody to be able to change what we currently have significant. In other words, new entrants will continue to chip away, from the support of those who are currently big or bigger, but not at the pace that you would need to be able to, make very significant inroads.
No, I think first and foremost, we've done our research. There are 5 million voters who are available. They sit and they're asking the question, what is the alternative? Even still today, with all the parties that are involved, citizens are still asking, we need an alternative. So I think there's a healthy appetite for new. The second is, I think you'd be foolish to want to say that one particular party is going to beat the ANC and get over 50% or whatever the case might be. I think the question we must say is, how do we frame coalitions come 2024? The issue at core is what kind of leadership you offer towards that. And having worked not only in the official opposition, but having come from the ANC and having worked with coalitions in 2016, part of the reason I'm running is to be able to bring about that expertise and competence to bring people together, make sure that we run a government that's formidable. And then secondly, managing coalitions. I think South Africans, we need to get used to the idea of coalitions. They're good for democracy, they're good for accountability, and they certainly work, in my humble opinion. And so we're going to practice it a few times, but we will get it right. So here's the big trick, is I think come 2024, we captured that imagination of that 5 million South Africans. That's the job that we've got to do, and ensure that all the other respective parties do their job so that we can form a very competent government. So I'm not sitting here naively saying it's going to be 51% and everyone is going to win. What we are running out of time of, though, which is the point you're trying to make about the pace, is that I'm not convinced, Vuyo, that if we just simply allow status quo to continue past 2024 without any change, that South Africa is going to be on a better trajectory. I think that any political party worth its salt knows it needs accountability, and if it doesn't deliver on employment, it must be held accountable for that. So in truth, we can't sit here and say 2029 is a guarantee. We are all under pressure. We are all worried. South Africa is in a very difficult space. What we've got to trust is to say change is what corrects that, and all of us must work together towards that, and not simply fear that anything chaotic would happen if the ANC was to lose. We must rather simply be saying, actually, democracy enjoins us to be able to vote for change, to allow for a new government to come in place. And maybe some of it might contain the ANC, but at the end of the day, it builds a change in our country for our future.
Well, the parties you've come from relied a lot on a well-oiled and up to a point fairly well-financed background. If you look at both the DA and the ANC, of course, their fortunes are changing very fast. There's not a lot of money to go around, but they can still, depend a lot on the human resources that they have. Even when the ANC is not paying its people, it can still rely on them to put together a conference, to electioneer, and so on. And across the country, the finances are dwindling. People are experiencing tough times, so they're not keen to part with the little that they have. What are you going to rely on going into 2024? Do you have the people who will volunteer, their services? Will they be prepared to sacrifice their last pennies for what you believe in?
Well, I think, Will, what you saw post the story in the Sunday papers over the weekend, and certainly as we prepare towards the launch, is the overwhelming sense of readiness for South Africans to roll up their sleeves and work. I think politics is made expensive when we run out of a partnership with communities. Citizens know what they want, and citizens are willing to sacrifice to get what they want. The history of this country is fought by citizens who actually committed sacrifices. They marched without money. They organized without money. And so if we're going to make money the only provider for political change, then we might as well say it will become an elite sport for only a few. Money is necessary, but it cannot be the only determinant. What we've got to do is get back to engaging citizens. I think our people know what they want. I think if we work with them, if we partner with them, and I'm encouraged, I really believe, as I saw, even in the 2021 elections, we went to communities, we saw people actually back their own leaders and say, can you stand up for an election, I'll support you. With very minimal finances, they elected a number of people. If we do that at a national level, again, targeting the very 5 million citizens who, like you and I, are sitting somewhere going, we are non-racial as a people. All we want is a job in every home. We want a healthcare that works for us, our kids to be educated. I am convinced with a little bit of contribution they make and ultimately turning out to vote and mobilizing their communities, we'll be able to bring change in this country. This is the moment, and I think we dare not miss it.
Let's see if we can take a couple of tweets. We have Sianda Waltamda saying, it seems like becoming a SA president is very cheap these days. It's almost laughable. There is no way Mmusi Maimane can lead the country. He fails to address the simplest of issues that face small communities. He must focus there first.
Like in any other format, and I think ultimately my track record can show what we've done. Not only have we run successful political parties, we've certainly run a community engagement, but it's not only that for you. I want to demonstrate the fact that even we've run an education center that allows for young people to study. We've been able to set up even micro businesses that help people empower. I have been an activist in the last 3 years, and I'm saying if we take this opportunity to do this countrywide, I am confident that we can see an economy that grows at over between 3 to 5%. We can sort out this load shedding issue, which I believe all we need is about 2 years to do that, because we need the political will to be able to achieve that. And ultimately, when we get through those things, we can achieve an economy that works. And so, like anybody, you're going to have some people who do not like you, but I'm inviting South Africans to trust and to believe in the vision, and let's work together to bring change.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Do join us again tomorrow evening for our continued focus on the year that was.